Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around all things COVID-19. On this show, we talk about various crises, the healthcare crisis, the financial crisis, and the inequality crisis. On specific episodes, we tackle different industries and what's happening in different professions as well. Sometimes we meet folks who are working as doctors. Sometimes we meet people working in entertainment. And today we are going to be focused on the field of entertainment. Today is episode 172. We've been on the air for 172 straight days, every day of quarantine, every day of lockdown in New York, almost 6 straight months. Today, we're going to meet Mason Alexander Park, film and TV and stage actor who starred in the national tour of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. This winter, Park was a tour de force starring in the acclaimed production of I Am My Own Wife, a Pulitzer Prize winning play. They've also appeared in Nickelodeon's iCarly. They'll soon be shooting a new series overseas, so we're very excited to have them here with us. Also joining us is special guest Kevin Paley, Assistant Director of I Am My Own Wife at the Long Wharf Theater. They are a non-binary artist who founded the Art Garage, one of the few trans-led theater companies in New York City. And one of our producers is our co-host today, Rose Horowitz, at Rose Horowitz 31, journalist, founder of #WomenToFollow, and co-producer of this show. You'll meet all of them in just a few minutes. Please tag and share with your family and friends right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree. So great to see you all here. Thank you for being here. We have been on the air almost 6 straight months, and that's because of all of you. Many thanks to every person who's written in to say this show is uplifting. This show is a lifeline. And I want to tell you, this show is a lifeline for me. It is uplifting for me. Thank you so much. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto: don't cancel your physical event without talking to us. Don't plan your virtual event without getting in touch. My email address is right here. Please write in and please tell us how we can help you. If you're joining us for the first time or you haven't been here in a while, this is what the show is about. On the first 165 episodes, we had 1 million plus viewers, 120 million plus social impressions, more than 300 guests, from 62 cities, 16 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. We've had doctors, nurses, authors, journalists, CEOs, founders, teachers, professors, actors, and so much more. We're in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in. Please check them out. Our archives are on youtube.com/Sreenet. All 172 episodes can be found there. Big thanks to our producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31. You'll meet her in a little bit. And Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. Please follow both of them on Twitter. We're always grateful to our sponsors. So let's say thanks to Muckrack Academy and their Fundamentals of Social Media course. It's a course that they helped me put together. It's free and you get a certificate. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have taken that course, and so should you. I learned a lot putting that together. You will learn a lot too. Please check it out. Big thanks to Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides 1 meal to those in need. 1 cookie equals 1 meal. 20% off with the code SREE, SREE. Check out nunbelievable.com. We also are grateful for promotional consideration from The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnincarroll, developer of more than 80 patents. At Inventor Charles, and guidetoinvention.com is his website. We are also grateful for the promotional consideration from The new Indian film Sadak 2 has just premiered today and is now streaming straight to your screen only on Hotstar with subtitles. Hotstar.com/US, Hotstar.com/US. And we also want to thank our event partner, Rise or Fall Together, the OneShare.World Interdependence Summit 2020, Thursday, September 17th. Fabulous speakers, as you can see on your screen. Register now. A free global conference, OneShare.World. And the Digimentors team is proud to partner and help put this together. Please check it out. And a final thank you to our friends at She's on Call. Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Korean host this weekly program, Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find it on Facebook at She's on Call and on Twitter and YouTube, She's on Call. They always have great guests to be with us and to talk and share information about COVID and so much more. All right, let's now bring on our guest to talk about what is happening in the world of entertainment and to meet Mason Alexander Park, film and TV and stage actor who starred in a national tour of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. First, let me say hello to Rose Horowitz, and then we'll bring Mason, and then Assistant Director of I Am My Own Wife, Kevin Paley. Let me first say hi to Rose. Hi, Rose.
Hi. How are you, Sree?
Great to see you.
Great.
We've been working together every single day for 172 days. Amazing partnership, you, me, and Vandana. I don't think you and Vandana have met in person yet.
No, we hope to, because she's now in New York vicinity, but she's always on the move. So I hope we will.
we have to arrange that. Tell us how you met Mason and how you pulled this together.
Okay. This winter, I have a friend who's involved in a theater group called Play With Your Own Food, and they do productions all around Connecticut and Fairfield County. And a friend said to me, "You have to see this show. You have to see this show." So Diana Muller told me that, and I got tickets with my daughter to see I Am Your Own Wife. I Am My Own Wife at the Long Wharf Theater. And I was just mesmerized by the performance that Mason gave and the whole staging and lighting, costumes of the shows. It was just tremendous and such a fascinating story. And afterwards, there was a talk back with Mason, and I did that with and it was just great to hear him talking about the play and how what he aimed to do in the role, and how this play was different from the version that was. I mean, the play when it was on Broadway, I think in 2004, if I'm right. So.
And so we decided that we will meet Mason and talk to them about their work. And we are also able to bring in the assistant director on the play as well. But let's talk to Mason first. Let's bring him on. Here is Mason Alexander Park. Hi, Mason.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was I kept trying to connect with you on Twitter, and we finally did, and you were very happy you could be on the show. You're on the show.
Yeah, Twitter is always challenging for me. I'm getting better at it though.
Okay.
But we want everybody to follow you on Twitter, Mason A. Park, so they can find you. Mason, my first question is always, how are you? How's your family doing through the crisis?
We're doing okay. I mean, a lot better than it could be for me. I left New York City a little bit ago, and I've spent most of my time in quarantine with my parents who live in Virginia. So it felt like a really nice chance for me to and reconnect with my family and work on other creative avenues that are beyond just being on stage or being in front of a camera. So it's been a wonderfully recharging and fulfilling moment in the times when things are not, completely overwhelmingly disastrous, which also, comes in waves. But overall, we're doing rather well. So I can't complain.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I just have to go into a close up again because this lighting is fantastic. This is how we know you're a star, because you've got great lighting.
It's how it jobs. I have to have this kind of stuff in order to compete nowadays. Everyone's booking things on Zoom.
Tell us about. It looks like you have we can see the lights of a vanity. It looks like in your glasses.
Yeah, yeah. I did a really wonderful event for iHeartRadio. They did this enormous Pride digital Pride event in June, and they asked a bunch of the Hedwigs from the Broadway production and John Cameron Mitchell, who wrote it and originally starred in the film and the off-Broadway show, to come and sort of reunite and do this kind of virtual wig in a box performance. So it was me and Neil Patrick Harris and Andrew Rannells and Darren Criss and a bunch of amazing people just sent in videos of us like with a bunch of props and costumes that iHeartRadio had sent us. And this was one of the things, this beautiful vanity was one of the things that I got to keep from it. And I was like, oh my God, could not have helped me out more right now. This fits right behind my computer and I can just turn it on and not have to worry about anything.
That's awesome to hear. For people who we have an international audience, you're going to meet them in just a couple of minutes. Tell them about kind of the landmark importance of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's not a play that everyone may know, especially now. So please give us that background and give them that kind of historical relevance of the plays of the play too.
Yeah, Hedwig to me was always one of those shows that I had kind of known a little bit about as just coming from the queer world. I had heard whisperings about it, and it's a bit of a cult hit. The film is, at least, and the show is. I think it is one of the only, if not the best, example of what a non-binary character looks like. So it's sort of held up really well over the last couple of years. It is a amazing concert experience. Basically, you're watching a transgender rock star from Germany kind of give this part cabaret confessional, part David Bowie rock concert, all wrapped into one. And it's just a beautiful story about the love that we seek in other people and the love that we seek in ourselves and that self-acceptance. And so I think that it's found a beautiful, lovely, wide audience, especially, and it has found a really amazing international audience. I believe Korea, it's been running there for on and off for the last like 30 years. And so John Cameron Mitchell, who wrote it and originally starred in it, said that he's never felt more famous in his life than any time that he goes over to a concert or something, that it's like the equivalent of seeing Selena Gomez or somebody like on the street, that everybody just knows who he is and chases after him. Because Hedwig is this amazing universal story that I think everyone can connect with and understand. And so it's been translated into so many amazing languages, and the music is just so stunning that it is definitely, there are a few shows that I think are capable of doing that. And it's what better of a show to be able to sort of cross all those boundaries than one about, someone who is on paper, not necessarily the most easily understood person in terms of normal conventions and whatever heteronormative society might see someone like Hedwig being. So it's exciting. It's a cool show.
And is it seems to me a very difficult performance because it requires a lot of you.
Yeah, it is a tour de force. It's basically a one-person show. There's a band, and the Hedwig has a husband who sings backup in the band. But over the course of the entire evening, I don't think anyone else on stage speaks more than 2 to 3 words. It really is her story and her show in terms of the demands of that specific actor. So it's an incredibly physically demanding show, a vocally demanding show, and a really emotionally demanding show. I was tired like crazy every single night. I was very, very drained after doing it. And I think all of us, all the actors who have sort of been through the ringer of it, there is this sisterhood, a camaraderie. Like anytime I run into any of them in New York City, there is this understanding that like we have been to to the top of the mountain in terms of theatrical experiences as an actor. It is, as I believe it was Meryl Streep that called it, Hamlet on heels.
I like that. Hamlet.
Yeah.
Hamlet on heels.
Hamlet on heels. Yeah.
Hamlet is hard enough to do, and then you add the heels, that makes it harder. Let's take a look at what we call our global tour. And then we're going to bring in our friend Kevin to say hello as well. Kevin Paley, who directed you in this other play that we're talking about as well. Let's see who's watching from around the world. We'll start in Pennsylvania. Tim Sohn is up late in Pennsylvania with the bears and the turkeys. I just saw a bear yesterday. Mark Lee, and Tim was the very first sponsor on the show. We're always grateful for that. Supporting this kind of work is not easy, and so we're glad to have him support us. Mark says, good morning from Durham. Good evening from Durham, North Carolina. No bears there, but I'm sure the rabbits, squirrels, and deers are here. Tim does a shout out to the amazing Rose Horowitz and the relentless Sree Sreenivasan. Charles Cunnincarroll's watching from North Caldwell, New Jersey. Hi, Charles. Thank you for sponsoring and supporting us. Rahajan is watching from Long Island. Hi, Rahajan. Thank you for being here. And Doug Levy says, it's great to have the show to count on. Thank you. And he's watching from San Francisco. Give us a favorite memory of San Francisco, Mason.
San Francisco was actually our first stop on tour when I toured with Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So at the time, Darren Criss was playing the role, and people watching this would know Darren from Glee or The Assassination of Gianni Versace, a very accomplished film and television actor and stage actor as well. And Darren, that's Darren's hometown, and so Darren was playing the part. And I was his standby, and I had such a wonderful time. My apartment was in the Castro district, which is like one of the gayest places on earth, and it was a really lovely place to kind of like walk through like on my way to work every day, just to see like rainbow flags everywhere and rainbow crosswalks on the street. It was cute and comforting, and in a way that I didn't expect the city to be so quaint and yet bustling at the same time. So we had a lot of really great San Francisco nights out and late nights at diners while we were there.
Nice. Jonathan's watching from the East Village. Give us an East Village memory.
Oh God! If anyone knows, Alan Cumming has a bar in the East Village called Club Coming, and I've spent many a very weird night there, including a New Year's Eve party that was a sight to behold.
I think I want to hear all about that. Maybe another time we'll talk just about the New Year's Eve party. What's the name of that bar?
Club Coming. It was something that Alan, he had started while he was doing cabaret on Broadway. There was he had a dressing room that he like stocked with liquor. I believe it was sponsored by multiple companies, and he used to throw miniature parties after the show, because it's a very dark show. Like cabaret is a very heavy show, and I think it was a part of his process in terms of unwinding. So they had built this beautiful neon sign that had said Club Coming, and they used to call that his dressing room that. And then I think it was a year or two afterwards, he was like, I'm just going to buy a bar in East Village, and I'm going to make Club Coming an accessible thing for everybody. So he's been doing that for many years. It's very cool.
Very nice to hear. And Jonathan's watched 172 episodes in a row, so we're very grateful to him. And Mark is giving a shout out to Rose, the truly amazing Rose. And Kathleen's watching from California. And let's see, so many other folks are joining. Apollo's watching from Vegas. And then we'll take a break on the comments. Do you have a Vegas story you're allowed to tell on global television?
I had an old partner who used to live in Vegas, so I spent a lot of time. Our family lived in Henderson, which is a short drive in. So I have a lot of most of my Vegas stories are very PG, because it's different when you live like in a neighboring area. You have such a different experience with it. I feel like I only went into Vegas once or twice with them, and it was like to grab dinner. I definitely do not have like a lot of nuts stories about Vegas, unfortunately.
I can't tell you how disappointed I am, but thank you. We'll expect you to make up for that in the rest of the evening with some great stories. And before we bring on Kevin, I know that Rose has a couple of questions, but I have a question for you. We are mourning today the great Chadwick Boseman. I'd love for you to reflect on what you thought of him and his passing at such an incredibly young age.
It's always difficult when someone passes when like we perceive as a young age or too soon, because I don't know, there isn't like time to sort of assess the amount that a person has done in their life and be like, oh, well, they did everything that they possibly could have, and they lived a full life, which Chadwick did. But because he was 43 years old, it's such an insane tragedy to think of how much more he had left in him, to think of how many things that he accomplished artistically and emotionally while he was going through what he was going through for those last 4 years, is such a testament to his character, to his ability to really put everything into his work. Because I know people that don't show up to work when they have a cold, let alone, doing something that's physically demanding as acting, and especially in the kinds of movies that he was doing at the time. It's really unfathomable, and I'm so very sad that we lost an incredible artist, but also a really wonderful person just in general. He was always so unbelievably kind in all his interviews, and the people that I know that have worked with him have had nothing but amazing things to say about his professionalism and his kindness. And it stinks when you lose people that are just genuinely really amazing people. I mean, it's hard to lose anyone, but knowing the effect that he had on now future generations of children of color and people that are going to be able to watch his movies and see themselves reflected on screen, he did leave behind an incredible legacy that I think his entire family and him would be unbelievably proud. So those are my immediate thoughts.
No, thank you. And I know I put you on the spot, but thank you for that. Last night we were live on the air when the tweet went out from the family on the Chadwick Boseman Twitter handle. And that tweet has, in less than 24 hours, become the most liked tweet in history, and just tells you about all the people he touched and how important he was in the entertainment world. So Rose, I'm going to let you ask him a couple of questions, and then we've got to bring in Kevin Paley, who directed Mason in the play that you were describing earlier. So Mason, you're going to get grilled by Rose. Get ready. She's a tough cookie. And then we'll bring in Kevin. Okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Rose.
Hi, Mason. Thanks again for joining us. I'm very excited to have you. Tell me how you prepared yourself, or can you tell us a little, people who don't know about the play I Am My Own Wife, and how you prepared yourself for that role?
So I Am My Own Wife is a one-person show, similar to kind of how Hedwig functions, except for it's a play, and it is about a real-life trans woman from Germany named Charlotte Mahlsdorf, who was a bit of a hotly debated and contested personality at the time. She survived the Nazis, she survived the Stasi, she ran a museum in which she collected everyday furniture and artifacts, and sort of loved the normalcy of and the history of everyday objects. And in the basement of that museum, she also ran a cafe or a gay club, and took in a lot of queer people, and really was a very prominent figure, especially as an out trans woman. She was an openly person in Germany at the time. She is sort of an enigma. It's a kind of story and a kind of character that, we do not hear of or hear from often, because she is an actual historical figure whose life was not necessarily, her life was marred with tragedy. It was a very difficult and challenging life that she led. But the play really highlights the optimism and the love that she had. And it's kind of astounding to think that there really are people that are are shaped by the things that happen to them and are shaped by the choices that they have to make, and come out the other side a much stronger and well-adjusted and content person. And I think historically we just see queer stories as generally being very dramatic and very depressing and they're bordering on trauma porn. You know, a lot of it is about the sadness and the drama that surrounds those difficult times in a queer person's life. And this show had a beautiful balance of being able to do that and emotionally, you know, give you an insight into what she kind of went through as a trans woman at her time. But it also showed that it just made her stronger, and it made her an even more vibrant and amazing woman. And so that's, in a nutshell, kind of what the show means to me, or how I can kind of like compartmentalize it into a very small, quick sentences of what it's about. But that's kind of what I Am My Own Wife is a little bit about.
How many characters did you play? Because you just kept transforming yourself.
I think the tally is 42. I'll have to double check on that.
I think, how many languages did you use in that show? Didn't you?
4?
Okay.
3 or 4. I think it was only French, German. Actually, it might have just been 3. It might have been French, German, and English. I was very lucky to not have to juggle too many languages. It was all stuff that I generally had experienced before, or, you know, I have had a really long string of German roles from doing Cabaret and Hedwig and My Own Wife kind of back to back to back. So I've sort of been immersed in the culture of Berlin, and that definitely helped me with this specific character in a great way, because then I was able just to focus on, you know, the lines and figuring out who each individual person was, as opposed to being like, I cannot even begin to wrap my head around this accent or these words, because it is a very challenging accent, I think, to nail down.
It is. How did you? One of the things that came up in the talkback was how you played this role differently from how it was played when it ran on Broadway, and the reviews were glowing and called you, like, you know, so light and graceful, and sort of bringing a new lightness to this role, which, you know, I mean, the story is fraught with a lot of tragic things.
I think that being queer and being, you know, a non-binary, a transgender person already helps so much, because I am not an actor that's stepping into a world that I don't directly understand. I am someone that understands the nuances of gender because of my experience with the world and my experience growing up trying to figure out, you know, who I was, in a way that, a gender actor doesn't necessarily have that experience, and kind of has to do their homework and sit down and have meetings with transgender people to try to like talk through those things. You know, it's kind of the classic trope that we see anytime a male actor wins an Oscar for playing a trans woman. It's kind of this, it's all transformation. It's all about how amazing that, you know, he lost 10 pounds to do this and looks great in a dress, and like, he talked to trans people, women, and like practiced in heels. Those are all things that are completely physical and are not necessarily indicative of the amazing work of an actor so much as like of a researcher, you know, of someone who's like training for a marathon or something, which has a lot to do with acting, and every role, you know, has that kind of a process. But for me, when it comes to parts like this, and I think why everyone is like has such a reaction whenever they see me play a character that was originally written for someone of a trans space, whether it be a non-binary role or otherwise, people are always just like, they experience it so differently, because they can tell that, one, it's not pretense, and two, that there is a deeper understanding and reflection of the humanity of the person within it, and that I don't have to sit and try to play a certain thing. I don't have to show you what a woman looks like or what my idea of a trans woman looks like, because I know what my idea of gender is and I know what my experience with gender is. So I can use that in a way that someone who doesn't have that kind of a history with their own gender journey can't really access those things, and they have to pretend. And that's great because that is so much of what acting is. But representation is so much more important at the end of the day, and it's so much easier to sit and watch a story being told by someone who has that experience and is of that world than it is watching someone working really hard to make it look like that is, effortless and that's their everyday, because people can see right through it. And I'm so happy that the world's kind of waking up to this idea that cisgender people should not be playing trans roles because there are so few opportunities for us anyway to begin with. And then, the second that there's a role that's written for someone who's trans, it tends to go to someone who isn't and is looking for a challenge. And I got to embrace the challenges of the actual character, the challenges of the actual text and of the show and of all the people. And so I got to spend so much more time making it real for the audience as opposed to figuring out, well, how would a trans woman experience this? Or, how would I walk in these shoes? Because it's not necessarily the most important aspect of someone's, of who someone is. It never has been, but we fixate on the physicality of trans people because it seems to be the only way that cisgender people can understand a trans person and understand a trans journey. It's this idea of physicality, of what's going on with the body, what's going on with the voice, why do they wear that, all that kind of stuff. And this was a chance for us just to throw it all away and get into a room full of trans actors and artists and creatives and just sort of say, well, what is the actual story and how do we service that?
What can you say about the way popular culture is embracing this idea of having actual trans people play the roles of trans people?
We're in such a really interesting moment in woke culture where I think people are really coming around to battle and to fight these systems of oppression that kind of exist in all industries. And there are a lot of oppressive systems that exist in the entertainment industry, and it has historically kept people that are of the queer experience and of the trans experience specifically from having access to work and having access to training and having access to representation and all these kinds of things. And we're in a moment where we're finally moving away from the fetishization. I think like a couple years ago, there were so many actors that were playing, so many like straight, white, cis men that were playing trans roles and queer roles and sort of parading around in these guises for awards. And the world kind of went nuts for it and thought they were so brave and thought they were so amazing. And now we're finally in a place where I think the world realizes that there are actually actors out there that are capable of playing those roles and having those experiences. And doing more than that too. Trans people should be able to play roles that aren't just trans in the same way that cis people can play whatever they want. And so we're like in a good place where I think people are trying to push the line forward a little bit and support marginalized voices, support queer people, support people of color and trans people of color by giving them the opportunity to tell their own stories. But it's a slow burn. It takes a long time. We've been around since the beginning of time. We've been in the arts since the beginning of time, and it's nice to be a part of a moment in history where I see the world done, even if it's slow and even if it's only a few of us breaking through at a time. I'm lucky to have a career in all mediums in which I've been able to play, myself now. I've been able to see myself reflected on screen in a way that I never did when I was growing up. I never saw anyone that looked like me or talked like me or acted like me. And it was hard because that's so much of how we decide as a society what's normal and what's acceptable. We look to art and we look to TV, we look to film, we look to books, and we kind of create a world based on these things that we see and the normalcy of how they're treated in art. So I think that we're finally breaking through somewhere, which is it's a lot of great progress has been made recently.
Thank you. So many great comments coming in, and we're about to bring Kevin on. Rajan says Long Wharf Theater. He's putting on the link to the play so people can catch that. Stefan says, here from Ramsey, New Jersey. I lived right next door to the Jane Street Hotel where Hedwig premiered in New York City. Loved it. Hi, Mason. You have one incredible smile. Made me feel better instantly. Tweeting from Spin It Social tonight. And Stefan's an awesome part of our Digimentors team. And you've got, and people have linked here to Club Coming and NYC.com. And Rajan agreed. Mason has an incredible infectious smile, and people are tagging others. And Rajan has also linked in to Kevin. So let's bring Kevin on, and Kevin can join us. Let's bring Kevin on. Kevin is backstage and waiting very patiently. Assistant director of I Am My Own Wife at the Long Wharf. They are a non-binary artist who founded the Art Garage, one of the few trans-led theater companies in New York City. So everyone, please welcome Kevin Paley, who is here right now. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I know you were waiting very patiently backstage. You probably haven't listened to Mason at such an extended length of time since the play. So give us an assessment of his performance so far, director.
Oh, Mason is brilliant. I do love listening to Mason. Mason and I could talk about these topics for hours. Even like listening now, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. I'm going to bring that up tomorrow. We love these things. I also want to say Mason has a beautiful smile. I'm in the middle of dental surgery, so here's mine. Yeah. So Mason as an actor and as a human is brilliant on stage and off stage. That's what made the conversations in the rehearsal room so enriching, is that Rebecca Martinez, the director, myself, Mason, the entire team, it was play because we were working on a show, but it was enriching in every experience in life. We all grew as people as we were growing as artists. It was one of those perfect experiences.
That's so great to hear. I didn't ask you my first question to all of our guests. How are you? How's your family doing? Where are you calling us tonight from?
Oh, so that's a great question. I'm calling you from my mother's house in Connecticut. And my mother and I have been quarantined together for 6 months. When I left New York City in March, I'm moving back tomorrow morning. So this was sort of, we spent the day doing some things that we love together. And then I'm going to move back tomorrow, and we're doing good.
And you're still friends?
Honestly, I was nervous. You know, I'm 26. I'm coming home. I'm going to live with my mom. It went so much better than I expected. And I feel like I'm going back to New York with such a deeper appreciation for her. And it's just going to make coming home even more exciting in the future.
All right. I'm going to leave our friend Rose to talk to both of you. I know she has some questions for you as well. Folks, you're watching a conversation with Mason Alexander Park and Kevin Paley. We are talking about acting, now about directing, and about the world of entertainment and what it's like to perform and be in the entertainment business during COVID and so much more. We've touched on so many fascinating topics. We'd love to hear from you and ask some questions. We have about 20 minutes left with these folks. So over to you, Rose.
Okay. Hi, Kevin. I think I must have met you at that talkback, but maybe we didn't meet in person, greet each other. Can you tell me how you got started with Long Wharf doing this show? Doing I Am My Own Wife.
Sure. So an assistant director's contract usually ends opening night. So I don't think we would have met at one of the talkbacks at one of the shows. But the way that I got involved with the Long Wharf is that through my company, the Art Garage, in New York City. We were with the Alliance of Resident Theaters, and someone who worked with the Alliance of Resident Theaters then became the artistic producer of The Long Wharf. And when this opportunity came up, we chatted, and she so graciously offered me the role of assistant director on this project. I very quickly met Rebecca, the director, who was already in rehearsal for another show, coming straight into this one. So we got to preparing. I'm from Connecticut, so I was excited to finally work at a regional theater that I grew up attending. And then first day, I met everyone, and that was it.
That's great. And what have you been doing in terms of, or what have you been pursuing in terms of your art since the pandemic started? Have you been able to do anything?
The question of my art has really blossomed this quarantine and expanded. It's been clarified a little bit for me. At the beginning of quarantine, I was pursuing a career primarily as a director and an artistic director. And I had the acting bug that I grew up with itching in me. And in COVID, I began writing again, projects for myself. I began other artistic avenues. I built a patio for my mother. I took up makeup and sewing, so now I'm making my own clothing. A little bit. We got some circle skirts. And my art has taken a turn for the pleasurable, in the sense that I enjoy it, and with no expectation of selling it or marketing it right now, I'm finding that my brain is thriving and that I'm loving what I'm doing as when I first began it. So I hope to have some music videos coming out soon, some drag in the future, and I just found new representation as an actor, so I'm hitting the game starting next month.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's great to hear. It sounds like a great period for you. So that's terrific. And tell me about, your some of your impressions of when you did see Mason on stage. Did he change each day? Was it he doing the role anew that you saw different aspects?
Mason is such a fascinating actor to work with. I think coming from actually without any qualifiers, like someone who can come in and immediately bring their heart and their vulnerability and their skill set, their training to a role on day one, a table read where someone else might have dipped their toe in the water. Mason dove in and knew that there was a team there to throw a lifeline if need be. And it's so refreshing to see an actor who's willing to throw themselves into the work at all cost with like completely healthy technique and parameter and an acting approach that, they can come off stage and we can hypothesize about what the playwright Doug Wright was going for, what our production is going for. And then seeing that change, seeing the thought take seed and manifest in the voice, in the body, in the mind. It's really it's a skill that people really need to refine to have the conceptualized notion manifest in their performance. And I think with Mason, the learning was never done because the audience is such a big conversation partner in a solo show, and each audience was different. Mason had some interaction with the audience and was always learning. So personally, during all the previews, it was fascinating to watch like the show take on different timbre in different moments. There was a new favorite moment every night to find that whether Mason, it was their favorite moment that night. Like I learned something new each night. There was a new line that I heard differently. And that's something that really keeps the art form of theater alive.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. I should have gone twice, and then I would have. How did you each, can you tell me about your growing up? And I mean, Mason, you talked a little bit about that, but how did you find who you were? If I can ask that.
Sure, Mason.
Yeah.
Do you?
Okay. I'll make it super quick and snappy. Basically, I moved around a lot because my dad worked for the government, so I think I was already at a very young age used to change being a consistency in a weird way, and never having a central place to kind of rely on. So a lot of my personality and all of those things, I had to figure out a lot quicker than I think. I had to grow up a lot faster than a lot of people, just because I never was given the luxury of time in one place. And so when I eventually found art and began to act, I think that was a massive release for me in terms of, you know, all the tension and the questions that I had within myself about who I am and about my humanity and all of these kinds of things kind of manifested in, I love being an artist, and I like the transformational aspect of world building and character building. And I think a lot of queer people kind of run to things like that because of the lack of consistency or understanding when you're at a young age, because the exact same tools that everybody else is given. You know, at the end of the day, I grew up and was born into a world that was very binary in terms of my day to day. So I was never really given an option to better understand who I was until I got much older, because you're constantly sort of being shoved into different boxes. And that's so much of like what childhood is it should be an exploration of things. But I think that society and parents, capitalism and all these things have kind of built these very specific, you either wear blue or you wear pink, or you're either gay or you're straight. And there's like, you have to make choices about your identity, and not enough people question it growing up. So I continued to challenge myself, continued to challenge and question who I was. And, you know, I'm still discovering those kinds of things. I'm still figuring out who I am, but I've only been an out non-binary for maybe the last 2.5 to 3 years. You know, much of because I didn't have anyone to look up to really understand that part of me, and know that the feelings that I had felt my whole life, that was the word I could use and claim to help define, you know, who I was. I was kind of pushing all of those things away because that word didn't really exist. So I was like this enigma that, you know, I didn't even understand. And now I know so much more about myself. So that's kind of like my journey in a very quick nutshell in terms of growing up and how that kind of related to, you know, who the monster that I have become.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I feel like we share a lot of things, except I was planted, instead of moving around, I was planted in little old Portland, Connecticut, which has 9,000 people. And even though we're in the New England social bubble, it's not the most progressive. And I come from a truck driving family. So you could say that at a young age, I was a self-professed tom girl. And I was very happy sort of living between the lines. And then as soon as I became a conscious individual at around 7, I realized that was wrong, essentially. And I grew up perfecting my masculinity. You could say, like, if you have femininity and masculinity here and there trees, I grew up forcing myself to grow towards the masculine tree, realizing that I was never going to grow to my full potential. My roots were dying. And so I finally, when I was like 23, 24, was in actually like a contract. It was a summer stock contract I wasn't enjoying. And I really had to figure out like who I am and why I'm here. And that came with my identity. And I gave up on the weight of masculinity. And with every single shackle that I took off, I began to fly, and I really have never looked back at the ground. It started with piercing my ears as like one little thing I always wanted to do for me. Then it became the makeup, then became the dresses. And then very quickly I realized that gender was only on the surface periodically, and that I really had to do the work on the inside to learn what suited me, and like what items from each gender that we consider like suits me. And I just found that when we celebrate everyone's essence, sort of the details start to like fall away, and we can see and celebrate each person for exactly what they are, their energy, their beauty. And right now I'm non-binary because I don't believe in the binary system. I'm trans feminine, because I've always felt like a feminine spirit, but I'm in a 6 foot tall, rather stocky body. My voice is deep, my body is hairy, and I am moving through the world conscious of these things. And I love that humans are also starting to become conscious and not maintain the same judgments that come along with those qualities. And I'm excited for the future for even more of that.
Well, thank you. You both, what a tremendous answer in a very big question. You both told dramatically and delightfully. I guess, how do you see, like in the next 5-10 years, the world of queer, and what will happen in terms of entertainment? And I think one of the big shows, I mean, that I know that I watched and was Pose, and I think that was the first time that they had, you had trans people playing trans people, and it was a huge, success. And how has that been, something that has sort of burst this idea that it's so, that of more parts for trans people and more representation in media?
I think that as a community, we've always understood the power that representation has, but we just haven't necessarily been given the tools or the platforms. And now you're seeing trans characters pop up on a lot of shows that a couple years ago would not have existed. You have a non-binary character on Billions. You have non-binary characters that are popping up in like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and it's kind of spectacular to see that, especially with younger generations and shows that are aimed at younger audiences, this inclusion of those characters and of actors of that world. Pose is an amazing example. It is such a beautiful visual and emotional experience that is centered around Black trans women and Black trans voices, which are, I never in my lifetime would I have thought that a show about ballroom culture would become the hit that it has become, even though I know it's something that I at my core would die to watch. Like, it's amazing to see moments that we flip into the mainstream, but then at the same time you look at who got nominated for Emmy Awards on that show, and these trans women are doing some of the most incredible performances that I've ever seen an actor do in these very three-dimensional characters. And the only person that gets nominated after year is Billy Porter, who's phenomenal, but is a cis gay Black man, which obviously is a huge step forward for that group as well. But the show is about Black trans women, and we have not nominated a single one of them for an award yet. So there are things like that that are very complicated and very stressful. And there's a lot of intersectionality in the queer community, obviously, that can lead to deeper, more nuanced conversations about those things. But obviously, the fact that we're even having this conversation about shows that do exist like that is an amazing testament to just how far that we've come, even since I've joined this industry. I never in a million years would have known that or thought that there would be roles that I could have auditioned for that weren't Hedwig. And now there are so many, and they're continuing to be written and continuing to be bumped up on the call sheet. So sooner or later, we're going to see shows that actually have, like a non-binary person playing the lead as opposed to the, best friend of the friend. And I'm really looking forward to what happens in the next couple of years because of that. And because of this whole moment has really given everybody a lot of opportunity to take stock with their own feelings about marginalized communities and marginalized stories. And hopefully that'll just lead to more people reaching down to help bring up voices that have just sort of been systemically kept on the lower end of the theatrical rung. So I can't wait to continue to make more art, to continue to be on more shows, and do more things as a writer and as a producer, and hope that we can continue to push that a lot closer to a world where where it's a lot easier just to sort of jump into it, like it is for a lot of cis white men.
Yeah, I agree with everything Mason said, especially that Angelica Ross and MJ Rodriguez on Pose should be nominated for an Emmy. I couldn't say it enough. I would also love to see trans masculine performers all over television, stage, and screen. Oftentimes, trans feminine actors and stories are the ones that are told, especially like in the fetishization, as Mason was saying earlier, of men playing trans women. We don't have that many stories of the trans masculine experience. And I think right now we're in a place where there are people at the top who are curating the stories of queer bodies that are being told. And until the people at the top look like the stories that they're trying to tell, I don't know if we'll be at a place where the stories are not curated to give a certain impression of what the trans experience looks like. And until we see trans people across the spectrum, not only those who are on Pose, but like some trans folks who work in STEM, everyone across the board, be it maybe a little bit less glamorous, deserves to have their story told. And I think with that on screen will come the normalization of trans people in everyday lives. Everyone wants to say they don't know a trans person. And I'm wondering if they do, and they haven't slowed down enough to take stock of the identity of everyone around them. And I'm really glad that hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll find ways to continue these conversations and for them to start to take effect.
Thank you. Such beautiful comments, and I'm learning so much, and I know people are. Let's look at what's coming on the internet, what people are saying. Let's see here. Mark says, I live in Durham, North Carolina, and I've seen a growing acceptance of the LGBT community in my progressive town, but it seems that this acceptance is happening around the nation. Is this just my hopeful thinking as an African-American person, or are you seeing more cultural acceptance? Let's ask both of you, Mason first and then Kevin.
I actually lived in Raleigh, North Carolina for quite some time, which is very close to Durham. So I used to do theater out there. And growing up in high school, I had a terrible time. It was not an accepting environment for me as of then. And we toured to Durham with Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And I had a very different experience the second time around. It was even in just, a span of 8 years, so much about the culture and the understanding around the multitudes that people carry, and the diversity that is out there in the world. It really, the landscape of that place had changed in a dramatic way that I felt much safer to be in and much more taken care of. So it's really amazing to know and to think of all the pockets of places that like a couple of years ago may not have been a place where I could have like walked down the street wearing whatever I want. But, I know that as time goes on and as people are given more information is power. And empathy is obviously a powerful tool as well. And I think that there are so many places like Durham that are kind of just progressing naturally because the world is changing. People have more access to the world than they did before. They have more access to information. And it's hopefully allowing us to sort of soften and empathize with the differences of others. So yeah, I am hopeful too. And I hope that is true of the rest of the nation, although I know there are pockets of it that it is not necessarily 100% accurate.
Yeah, I'm hopeful as well. I will say, when I hear cultural acceptance, I think that yes, people nowadays give human kindness to more people than perhaps in the past, or a broader idea of what a human is. Human rights are more important. But does that cultural acceptance come with voting for people who will keep the safety of marginalized people in mind? I've worked a lot of contracts where everyone will bake you cupcakes for opening night and go ahead and support something that directly works against the human rights of, say, the LGBTQ community. So I think time will tell. But in terms of human kindness, which I find is more important on the streets day to day, it's growing, and I'm here to meet it with a smile.
Thank you. Vandana says, Darren, Chris reminded me of a very Porter musical, which reminds me of J.K. Rowling. It's so disappointing that she, who created something so meaningful and generation defining, turned out to be a hateful TERF. First, can you explain TERF and the J.K. Rowling controversy? Do you know it, Mason?
Yeah, so TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminism. It is a word or an abbreviation, an acronym, sorry, used to describe people that are that use their feminism in a way that is not only detrimental to the trans community, it is exclusionary and very hateful. And yes, Darren, absolutely. A Harry Potter musical is actually what I fell in love with. Like, and is the reason why I'm obsessed with Darren. We bonded over that really, really early on tour. But and I know that like he would be unbelievably disappointed. I think it's kind of spectacular to see so many of the people that made JK her fortune, you know, in film, and like Daniel Radcliffe and all these people kind of denounce her views because they are so fundamentally wrong. Essentially, she, for the last couple of years, has sort of been tweeting out consistently talking about her stance on trans women in the workplace, on trans women in bathrooms. She thinks that basically that trans women are sort of, their inclusion in womanhood is eventually going to become detrimental to the rights of a woman. So it's a very fear-based thing. She doesn't actually see trans women as women. She fundamentally as their gender that they were, or their sex that they were assigned at birth. And so it's a very complex issue if you don't understand the nuances of the transgender experience, and if you don't respect the idea that a trans person is the person that they are, the person that they declare that they are is who they are, because gender is a construct. We all, anyone who, you know, has any sort of scientific experience in the gender sphere understands that they're literally just down to chromosomes. Like the idea that they're called sex chromosomes came out of this need to have a shorthand. They don't represent, X and Y don't actually represent female and male. 4% of the actual like DNA within those chromosomes has anything to do with gender or with sex. But we, as a society, as of, you know, I can't remember how many years ago that sort of became normal in the medical field, have kind of normalized this idea like, oh, you're either a man or you're a woman. But there's people that are XYY and the XYY, you know, and XXY, and there are intersex people, and there are so many kinds of ways in which the human body takes shape and takes form. And so gender is just another thing on top of that, another construct on top of that, and a very complicated thing. But she doesn't see it that way. She sees it as there are male and there are female people. And I accept the idea of transness. I accept the idea that you say that you're a woman, but I don't feel comfortable with you in the bathroom because I don't believe that you're a woman at your core. I just respect you from afar. And I think that you having rights takes away the one mine that I have, you know, fought for my entire life. Punching down at a marginalized group of people, and it's really painful and sad to watch someone with such a big platform that is built on ideas of acceptance and the underdog. That's what her entire like series is about. It is a queer, you know, it is such an allegory for people that are different, and she is unfortunately sort of become the Dolores Umbridge or the Voldemort of her own story, and just doesn't necessarily see it yet. Well, and hopefully time will change that for her.
Wow, that is, I mean, for anybody who wanted to catch up on the J.K. Rowling situation, has just caught up. Thank you for sharing that. And I know, especially with admire an artist, you know, it's hard to see the artist disappoint in so many ways. My mom, by the way, is watching from Kerala in India. Hi, Amma, love you. Always great to.
Hi.
We did a shout out to Kevin's mom earlier, and I know that Mason was also with family, so we want to do a shout out to family. Rose, by the way, is an amazing mother herself, and she does all this great work with us and all her other work, and also takes care of her family, and that is amazing. We're almost out of time. I want to point out what Apollo said. It's awesome to see Mason Park and Kevin Paley give voice to non-binary people, and they're both so beautiful in their charisma, great warmth in their smiles and personalities. Thank you. And I say especially to Kevin, not easy when you're working on your teeth and your smile to come onto video and be there. So extra kudos, and we're really grateful. Awesome quarantine creativity. Looking forward to more of your art. And Mark says, I need to put you in touch with my friends. He's listed a whole bunch of people. Some friends are more constantly fighting against stereotypes through their art forms. By the way, you should also know that we have trolls on this on Twitter and elsewhere who've come in and said all kinds of terrible things. I don't read them out because we don't have to give them a platform, but just even on a show like this, people do find their way, and it's so sad that people do it. Stefan says, I'm a born and bred Greenwich villager who's always supported the LGBTQ community since I was a child, and I'm so happy to see so much progress for all the community over the years. Kevin and Mason, you're both absolutely fabulous. And Apollo says, exactly, punching down is in the most marginalized people. Trans people have been missing for nearly 2,000 years, unlike South Asia, where they've maintained a presence. And we will do an episode with South Asians who are trans and can talk to us about the experience there and globally as well. Rajan says, my own evolution has been spurred by my own outsider status in a dominant culture, cis het white, where I do not belong, and working, playing, and living outside various people. That's a process that can't really be accelerated, in my opinion, by corporate diversity initiatives. Still working on that evolution. Thank you, Rajan, for sharing that. And you heard Mason use the word intersectionality. And one of the things we do, Mason, is that we asked our friend Kimberly Crenshaw, the great Columbia Law School professor who coined the term intersectionality, how can we support Black people? And she said, say their names. So Rajan went in and made a list of the names of the folks who've been killed in police action. And we read that at the end of the show. So nice to see that all tied together. Mark says, great discussion. And you two remind me of the new generation of young leaders who are so much more open. And yes, we all have co-workers who fit the LGBT community. With that, let's give both Mason and Kevin a big thank you and give them each a chance to say goodbye and some final thoughts for now. Hope you'll promise to come back in the months ahead.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, Kevin.
It's been an absolute joy.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, Kevin, go.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's fine. Thank you, Sree, and thank you, Rose, and everyone at home. It's really been a pleasure. I'll do this anytime.
And I love this handle you have, Holla If You Hear Me. I like that.
Oh, yeah, that's for Instagram.
I love that. Let's go to Mason.
No, oh God, that handle really made me laugh when we first met. I thank you so much for having us. I mean, it is a really great time for everybody to sort of start connecting with people that they wouldn't have otherwise met in real life. So I'm so excited to take opportunities like this to sort of reach new folks and talk to new people. So I appreciate you for what you've been doing during quarantine. And it's amazing how much you've accomplished. It's so exciting to think of all the people you've talked to. So thanks for having us.
And Rose has been there every step of the way. Jonathan says, a great show, a non-binary or a binary decision. Thank you. And Rajan says, thank you, Kevin and Mason. Blessings to you and your respective family and loved ones. We'll let you both go. Thank you so much for being here, and goodbye. Thank you. And thank you. Rose, you did another fabulous job. They were fantastic.
They were amazing.
Thank you for bringing them on here. And I can't wait till you go out to more shows. That means you'll have more guests to bring us as well. The importance of staying for the talk back and then going and saying hello after. So thank you very much, Rose. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Really terrific show. Thank you.
And I know how hard it is for you to be off Twitter while the show is on, so we'll let you get back to Twitter. And everyone follow Rose and tweet at her and follow her tweets. She's amazing. She does so much work for all of us to put this show together. Also, big shout out to Vandana Menon. Her observations about J.K. Rowling got us, I think, a fantastic set of sound bites from Mason. Thanks very much, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's Rose and Kevin and Mason. Thank you so much for being here. Let's read some of the other comments that are coming in. So good to see all of these comments. And Ashok, who's watching from Trivandrum, says, would like to inform you that both of us, me and my daughter Minakshi, were tested positive on August 19th. After 10 days, we were tested negative. We were in the Kerala State First Line Treatment Center for 10 days. We have come back home. I'm so glad to hear you're okay. Ashok has been a regular viewer and supporter of this show, watching from my parents' hometown in Kerala in India. Thank you so much for being here. Glad you're okay. And 10 days, I know they must have been really hurtful and painful, but glad you're back. We hear so many stories of people who have taken so long to get better and to get back. I want to alert everybody to the show that I co-produce that will run tomorrow with Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. She's on call on Facebook, on Twitter, on Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And they will have two very important and timely guests, Dr. Marsha Harris, who specializes in colon and rectal surgery. You know that the great Chadwick Boseman died of colon cancer. So we'll talk to Marsha about that. And then we'll talk to Dr. Monica Gutierrez, who's in rehab medicine. She was on my radio show earlier, and she talked about how men and women in all age groups, 20s to 70s, are in her rehab in San Antonio, Texas, learning to walk again, learning to talk again, learning to eat again. And so anyone tells you that this is a hoax, this is not real, as someone called into my radio show today on WBAI and said that, they are so wrong, and you will hear about that tomorrow. These days, our weekends are busy around here. We have 5 shows. So we have this show tonight. We have the radio show on Saturday morning. On Sunday morning at 8:30, we do the New York Times read-along, where we read the New York Times out loud like crazy people, 8:30 to 10:15 a.m. every Sunday. Liza Donnelly, New Yorker cartoonist, will be with us, and she is fantastic, making her 3rd appearance on the New York Times read-along in the last 5 years. And so honored to count her as a friend and someone who I learned so much from. We work together in New York, in Pittsburgh, and in Dubai, and we'll talk all about that on all our social channels. And then we'll have She's on Call. And then at night, at 9 p.m. Eastern, Ruth Ratlott will be here for our positivity episode. Every Sunday, we talk to generally positive people, positive, purposeful people, and Ruth will be our guest. So please join us at 9 p.m. Eastern for that. We have a very important show on Tuesday where the head of the World Health Organization's the top expert on mass gatherings and on social events and sports events, will be with us at 11 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday. You don't want to miss that episode. So now we're going to do what we promised Kimberly Crenshaw we would do. We are going to say their names as listed out by Rahajan, who worked very hard to put this list together. I am so grateful to him for doing that. So I'm going to now call up the list and read the names. And please join me as we read these names. Jacob Blake is on the list, who is with us still, paralyzed, but with us, shot by police on August 23rd, 2020, exactly a week ago. Where were you when you first heard the story? Where were you when you first saw that video? And so now let us read their names of the victims of police violence. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Michael Dean, Tatiana Jefferson, Botham Jean, Antoine Rose II, Danny Ray Thomas, Stephon Clark, Aaron Bailey, Charlena Chavon Lyles, Jordan Edwards, Chad Robertson, Muhammad Muhaim Jr., Terrence Crutcher, Corin Gaines, Joseph Mann, Philando Castillo. I just want to say that some of these names, like Philando and others, are names you know because they become, sadly, household names. But just as sadly, so many of these names you've never heard before or know nothing about. Each one has a backstory. Alton Sterling, Kaylin Rockmore, Janet Wilson, India Kager, Samuel DuBose, Darius Stewart, Sandra Bland, Alexia Christian, William Chapman II, Freddie Gray Jr., Walter Scott, Eric Harris, Maya Hall, Megan Hockaday, Janisha Fonville, Natasha McKenna, Jerame Reed, Tamir Rice, Akai Gurley, Tanisha Anderson, Aura Rosser, Shanique Proctor, Laquan McDonald, Michelle Cousseau, Michael Brown Jr., Eric Garner, Pearlie Golden, Gabriela Navarez, Yvette Smith, Renisha McBride, Miriam Carey, Chaim Livingston, Kayla Moore, Shelley Fry, Melissa Williams, Shalena Weldon, Alicia Thomas, Chantel Davis, Charmel Edwards, Rekia Boyd, Charisse Francis, Trayvon Martin, Ileana Stanley Jones, Ryan Budu, whose brother was here on this show a few months ago telling us about how his brother died in police custody, Tanika Wilson, Catherine Johnston, Albert Spruill, Kendra James, Latanya Haggerty, Margaret Laverne Mitchell, Taisha Miller, Danette Daniels, Frankie Ann Perkins, Sanji Taylor, Eleanor Bumpers, and that takes us to 1984. Emmett Till, killed by white supremacists August 28th, 1955. That's right, the anniversary was yesterday. George Stinney Jr., convicted of murder in an unfair trial as determined in 2014 and executed in an electric chair on June 16th, 1944. And that's not all the names. That's not even the start of all the names, but we must read them and we will continue to update them. Rahajan is working on an unupdated list. Sadly, there are other names and other instances that have even happened since all of this, the national attention has been and the spotlight has been put on police and what they do. Let's look at some of the other comments that have come in. Ashok and Meenakshi, I'm very glad that you're negative for COVID-19. Continued blessings to you. Rajan says, one of the more saddening, angering things about George Stinney's execution in 1944 was that he was the youngest person ever executed in an electric chair. He was only 14. Just think about that. And just horrifying, horrifying. And with that, we come to another end of another episode. We are so grateful to all of you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us in so many ways. One way is by watching. Another is by telling a friend about this. A third is by telling your friends who are looking to promote something that they should sponsor us. And we would love to talk to them. You have my email address about sponsorship. We're always open to ideas and collaboration. If there are ways in which we can extend the reach of this program, we would love to do this. Apollo says, awesome show. So let us now thank our sponsors once again for being so great and supporting us, including Nunbelievable, Divinely Delicious Cookies on a Mission, 20% off with the code SREE, S-R-E-E. Please take a look and please support nunbelievable.com. Big thank you to Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, free course available right now, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. We are also grateful to Charles Cunnan Carroll and The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention. At Inventor Charles is his Twitter handle, and guidetoinvention.com. Charles is the developer of more than 80 patents. Thank you so much, Charles, for your sponsorship. And as always, we're grateful for the for additional support provided by the new Indian film Sadak 2 has just premiered and is now streaming straight to your screen only on Hotstar with subtitles. Check out hotstar.com/US, Hotstar USA on Twitter. And we also want to say thank you to our friends at Rise or Fall Together, the One Shared World Interdependence Summit, Thursday, September 17th. Dozen plus awesome speakers, 3 hours of programming, all free. Renee Fleming, who's the world acclaimed singer, David Nabarro, the WHO Special Envoy for COVID-19 Preparedness, Jairam Ramesh, Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Environment in Climate Change for India, and Kekashan Basu, founder and president of the Green Hope Foundation and UN Human Rights Champion. All of this is coming to you if you register now at oneshared.world, oneshared.world. Thanks very much, everybody. We're so grateful to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. You can join us, and you can support us also by following me on Twitter at Sree, tweeting at me at Sree, connecting with me on email, and subscribing and checking out our archives. More than 170 episodes, all available on youtube.com/Sreenet, youtube.com/Sreenet. Please join us there, and please hit that subscribe button. And also, if you are able to hold up your camera phone right now, you can get an alert via a very gentle WhatsApp alert. Not a WhatsApp group, a WhatsApp alert. Please join us by just signing up for that. And if you can't do that, just ask me to add you. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. We're here back at 9 p.m. Eastern time for this show, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time for the New York Times read along, where we read the print edition of the New York Times.